A debit call from...
It's me for just a minute. I've been moved to Omaha.
An inmate at the Douglas County Jail. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or press 1. To prevent calls... This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. For more information about our privacy policy, please visit www.connectnetwork.com. After the beep, press 5 to accept this call. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. Stay on the line to accept this call. Thank you for using GTL.
I don't consent to recording my call. Hi.
Hey, Mike. How you doing, sir?
Another day. Anything I need to know?
You should be getting a lot of letters early in the week, and I can't think of anything specific. You know, from Pat's last email, she sends her love, and she finally got the books that we had mailed to her after we complained about it.
Okay. There's a recent Supreme Court ruling regarding the tracking of people via cell phones. It was I was told it was the Carpenter versus U.S. And there's a lot of guys here that are looking at putting out motions to suppress, citing that they were tracked down based on their cell phone triangulation. Well, that's how the FBI located me, was cell phone triangulation. And if not for that, of course, not that I was fleeing or hiding from anybody, because obviously anybody that was fleeing or hiding wouldn't have had a cell phone on, let alone having two cell phones on, as I did, because I wasn't hiding or running from anybody. But anyway, if anybody's got the ability to look up that case and any information regarding any of the Supreme Court information regarding that, that would be something I could definitely try to use and put into a motion, I guess. Also, if someone has the ability to search proof that the all-capital letter name in court documents references a non-living entity. Now, I've read in many cases that in the U.S. printing style manual, it says that an all-capital letter name in any court document references only non-living entities. But I have not obviously had access to a computer to do any searches, so I don't have that. If anybody has anything that they can find pertaining to that, whether it be the U.S. printing style manual or any kind of court case or anything where you know it's recognized that the all capital letter name references a non-living entity, that would definitely help me. Other than that, if my friend up north has the ability to upload the Tusi Indian Nation versus BC case to the USCT site, there's somebody that might be able to get it to me.
All right. I got you on that.
Oh, and I don't know if you have any contact with the True Man. I have been trying to reach him for several days now, and no response. So it's been going on a month now since I sent some documents to him that I needed to have filed, and that's not happening. So I guess it's something that's beyond his ability. So I was going to try to see if I can get him just to, if nothing else, if he can make a copy of the documents and send them back to me, and if he's able to, file them in the future, fine. If not, then at least I'll have them. I can try to go at it from a different direction, because I've got a filing deadline to get that stuff filed in order for it to be effective, and that deadline's fixed to pass. So.
Yeah, I know they make it incredibly hard to fight your case, given they lock you up and they don't give you access to computers, and you have limited phone time, and it's a very common story that we hear over and over again. It's just insanity.
Yeah, and in giving notice to this county and different places, you have to file things in certain locations. And I've already mailed them twice to that location, and I've gotten a response back that they claim they didn't understand what it was about. It's just plausible deniability BS. They know what it's about. It's just that they don't want me to be able to build an official record that shows that I'm not their property, that I have no contract, and that they have no jurisdiction over me. That it's all presumptive law. It's all old canon law. And, it's just like today, this ministry that comes out here, I spoke to the guy last week. I said, every time you equate crime with sin, you're putting the statutes that man makes, where they're criminalizing human behavior as equal with God's law and sin, is not proper, because God's law is God's law. Love God and love your neighbor. But somebody who's being destroyed in their life and everything taken from them because of in my case being accused of exercising a Second Amendment recognized right, and then other people in here who've been charged with possession of different substances and stuff. So that's not God's law. That is not a sin even. That's a behavior that's been criminalized for the sheer purpose of destroying somebody, whether it be for political reasons or in this case to make money. They warehouse people in here. This is a corporation. And sure enough, today he goes on a tirade about Romans 13, wants me to read it. And I said, well, I would rather not, because I don't agree with Romans 13. I'm not a Roman citizen. That was a letter Paul wrote to the Romans. Rome fell. Caesar's dead. We had a Revolutionary War. Remember, if speaking out against corrupt government and standing up and fighting against corrupt government was a sin, then all these Baptist preachers that stood at Lexington and Concord on the Green and stood against the British regulars, well, they were all sinners, and this country's going to burn in hell because it rejected the King of England. And of course, if we followed your logic, then we'd all be British subjects and colonists still.
Yeah,
but we're not.
I run into
contact. We're supposed to be in a free country.
Yeah, these Christians who think that Romans 13 says we got to blindly follow government authority no matter what it says are just hugely mistaken, and they're walking towards a path of tyranny and destruction, and they'll reap what they sow. There's so many examples in the Bible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't bow down, and they bucked government because they didn't want to worship another god. There's so many examples in the Bible where it says to please God and not to please man.
Well, yeah, and Christ said you can only serve one master. And, of course, when they asked him about giving tribute to Caesar, it was certainly clear that he said, render unto God what is God and render unto Caesar what is Caesar. If you don't owe Caesar, you don't owe Caesar. Mm-hmm. And whose are you? Are you God's or are you Caesar's? Well, I'm not a creation of a government. And in this country, the government's supposed to be a creation of the people, but what we've got is a corporation posing as government. Nowhere in the Bible does God give dominion of man to man. And, of course, as I like to point people to 1 Samuel chapter 8, where God, in verse 11 through 17, tells you why you don't want to follow man. He tells you the consequences. He says, follow him. Yep. But anyway, it's all controlled, where every jail and every prison I've ever been in, the same thing. They preach a Romans 13 submission to Caesar agenda. And, they're on the payroll.
Yeah.
And, I sent them letters. I tell them, I said, this is the way you're coming across. And the people in here, they really aren't even listening to you. They're coming out of the rooms just to get out of the rooms and sitting there, simply because it's something to do to break the monotony. I said, when you start, when we had worship songs like The Voice of Truth and Courageous by the Casting Crowns, which has, spiritual and motivational, and, those are, received properly. But the one today was like, you are good, there is nothing good in me. Well, anybody that believes there's nothing good in them doesn't know that they're a child of God, because God doesn't make junk. And if you're a child of God made in His image, then you are good. You just, what a person has done at one time is not who they are. Just because you may have done something that may or may not have been proper or good doesn't define your entire life. And I've yet to meet anybody in any of these places I've ever been in that was just totally evil, except for some of the guards.
Yeah.
Not to say that there's not some evil people in these places. I think I might have met one or two. But in those cases, they all had the same thing. They were all on drugs that had destroyed their mind. They had lost all humanity. And those are the exceptions.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. We need a
anyway.
mighty. Yeah, to be, if we had more time to talk, it's just overwhelming, man. I mean, it's just overwhelming, the amount of innocent people in prison, how bad the judicial system is, how bad the FBI, BOP, DOJ is. I could go on and on. I got 3 people in prison. All of them are innocent. None of them should spend a day in prison. I got 3 people, 35 years in prison. I got at least a couple, 32 years in prison. You're in prison. They thrown your wife in prison. I mean, I created a website. I created a web link today. It goes to the same website I've always had, but I got the new name. It was kind of like I splurged and got a gift for myself. Our new website name is IHateTheFBI.com. I mean, when I think about what they've done, they've set themselves up as overlords of society, and they've incarcerated innocent men and women all over this country, and they've held back the progress of humanity. And it's just terrible, and people don't really care.
60 seconds remaining.
Mrs. Parsons spent 25 years as a professional design engineer at the peak of her game, at the latest and greatest technology, able to do what very few people, let alone very few women can do in this world.
Right.
See how many electrical design engineers are women out there? Not many. And
right.
Yet she is basically taken out of her field, and by the time that she gets out, if she's not able to get out for 4 or 5 years, do you think the technology is going to be the same? No. It will pass her by, and she will have a hard time if she's able to find a job doing anything close to this. Technology changes every year. They have to upgrade their AutoCAD every year. What they're doing to her is a crime and a sin, and the FBI needs to be disbanded. Today they talked about a guy that's going back to prison for 10 years after he was just released, and they've got a...
Thank you for using GTL.